We are ready to go.
Yep, let's go.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Nalima Sitati Monene, and I am joined with a host of my colleagues here. I am the Executive Director of the African Career Education and Resources, Inc. And this afternoon, we are here convening this press conference, and our message is to urge the House, the Senate, and the Governor to move very quickly with urgency to approve the $300 million in emergency rental assistance for Minnesota households. ACER, the African Career Education and Resources, Inc., is a part of the ERASE campaign. The ERASE campaign is part of a national campaign, and in Minnesota is being led by the Minnesota Housing Partnership, Housing Justice Center, ACER, and a host of other community members and community organizations. And the purpose of the ERASE campaign is to ensure that we continue to advocate for the much needed emergency rental assistance, and also to ensure that the resources were being channeled, with the urgency that was needed in order for it to be effective, to continue to sustain people in their houses so that we can continue to maintain housing stability. As we all know, as of today, the state surplus has continued to increase. I think we are sitting at about $9.253 billion for the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023. So we have the funds for this emergency, and we have an emergency right now, and we need to act very quickly to ensure that renters in our community who are in need of rental assistance can continue to maintain their stability. As we all know, Rent Help Minnesota was closed in January of this year due to a lack of funds, and we still have thousands of renters who are left out without protection, despite the fact that a lot of people rushed to complete an application to make sure that they got in before the deadline. And so we know that we are still in an ongoing pandemic, and residents cannot wait. Most of the folks who had the applications in, I think the assistance timed out, I think, by last month. And I think if anybody has any further coverage, this is really the final month. And so we are really urging the House, the Senate, and the Governor to move very quickly with urgency so that we can continue to maintain housing stability in our communities. And so I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Shana Tomenes. She's the Equal Justice Works Fellow sponsored by Target Corporation of the Housing Justice Center. And she will come and speak to us and shed more light on this issue. Welcome.
Thank you, Nalima. My name is Shana Tomenes. I'm an attorney and Equal Justice Works Fellow at the Housing Justice Center. The Housing Justice Center is a statewide nonprofit and public interest law firm who works to promote and protect protect houses across the state. We are here to talk about the urgent need for funding for emergency rental assistance and the effects of the abrupt closure of Rent Help MN that's already being felt by Minnesotans. These Minnesotans right now who don't have an active Rent Help MN application after the program closed do not have eviction protection under the state law. They can be evicted right now. And there's really scarce local emergency rental assistance funds for people to even apply for, let alone receive. The eviction numbers across the state tell part of this story of what these families are facing, but an increasing number of people are also facing extrajudicial evictions. And what I mean by that are families who are longtime renters are suddenly getting a non-renewal notice from their landlords. Families are being harassed and told, pay up or leave now. And these people aren't necessarily getting a formal eviction summons, but are nonetheless being displaced across the state, moving out of their communities, moving in with family members, and not having the housing stability that they need in this time. This money is urgently needed to stabilize Minnesota communities most impacted by COVID-19, including BIPOC families, families with children, and the elderly and the most vulnerable. This money is needed right now to help stabilize these families and to keep people safe in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shana, for sharing that information with us. And our next speaker is Dr. Tolulope Ola. She is the founder and executive director of Restoration for All Minnesota. Welcome, Dr. Tolulope.
Thank you so much, Nelima, and thank you to Shana for that wonderful overview she gave. Restoration for All is a community-based organization, and we worked at the grassroots level. And the approach is that we use a bottom-up approach to do whatever we are doing, to talk about policies, systems, and environment. So working in the community, we got to know that a lot of people benefited from the eviction rental assistance. And, you know, it was a huge success, especially in Dakota County where I worked, Ramsey County, and also Hennepin County. And just because a lot of people that will not have access to that kind of rental assistance had an access this time around, we saw the importance of continuing to make this available. We are appealing passionately to you to continue to fund this eviction rental assistance, because a lot of people that they thought they were already settled, they thought they were stably housed, having pulled the rug, I think it's going to become difficult for them to be paying their rent. So that being said, I want to appeal that we continue this so that people that were able to access the eviction rental assistance will continue to do that, and they can also be okay in other aspects of their life, employment. They will have the time to look for better employment that can make them pay, and also their health will be okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tolulope. Our next speaker will be Ms. Geraldine Jackson, who is a community elder and activist and the Lifetime National Miss Kwanzaa. Welcome, Ms. Jackson.
I think she had to step away for a moment to help someone else.
Okay, all right. We will move to Angela Larson, who is the Family Services Director for United Community Action Partnership.
Thank you. My name is Angela Larson, and I'm the Family Services Director for United Community Action Partnership, or UCAP. And I work primarily in the Marshall or Lyon County area, but as an agency, we cover 13 counties for emergency housing. As the main provider for homelessness and emergency housing in Southwest Minnesota, UCAP serves people with homeless prevention, shelter, and ongoing supportive housing programs. The last 2 years have been very challenging, and the abrupt closure of the Rent Help MN program and the unmet need experienced in our rural area has really caused some unintended consequences. First, landlords are really struggling. Daily, UCAP receives phone calls from upset landlords who thought the Rent Help MN program was going to help them by providing assistance to their tenants. Some are owed thousands of dollars from multiple renters. Unfortunately, there were many tenants who were unable to or otherwise did not finish the application process. So at this time, there's nothing the program can do to help them. They may not have heard about the application deadline in time, may have had difficult time gathering documents, or in our rural area, they may have had internet issues with submitting their application. Whatever the reason, landlords who counted on being made whole through this process no longer have that opportunity. So the landlord has to figure out what to do with unpaid rent and possibly an inability to pay the mortgage that they hold on that property. This situation has caused some of our local landlord partners to have to sell their property or face foreclosure on it. Unfortunately, these are some of the landlords who had been most likely to work with people who have trouble obtaining or maintaining housing. Since the eviction moratorium, even local mom and pop landlords are less and less likely to take a chance on someone who doesn't have a perfect background check. Once willing to work with people with barriers, landlords are being more selective and are requiring double and triple deposits just to enter housing. In short, they can't risk going unpaid again. So if people experiencing homelessness can't get into housing and we don't have enough funds to help people avoid eviction, that means that we have more people in shelter, longer periods of homelessness, and more households that cannot be served due to a lack of shelter space. Not having traditional shelters in our area uses motel vouchers and other models to try to meet the need. Currently, we shelter many households who are working and would be able to leave shelter if only we could find an open unit and someone willing to rent to them. So if we continue to lose landlords who will work with us to help get people out of shelter, families will have fewer and fewer opportunities for housing. We appreciate the time and being able to share the needs that we're seeing in our rural area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela, for your comments. And so up next, we'll have Ms. Joelyn Jackson, who's a community elder and activist, as well as a lifetime National Miss Kwanzaa. Welcome, Ms. Jackson. Please unmute yourself, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So I am, as she said, a longtime elder community servant in the community, working to hopefully leave the universe a little brighter, and a longtime lifetime National Miss Kwanzaa. Basically, what I wanted to share with you is that I see housing as a human right, and I know that we can do better here in the US. We just have to have the will. I see us all as humans, and as the immediate past chair for the Community University Healthcare Center as part of the University of Minnesota, there's a clear intersectionality between housing and health, which is another reason why we should be thinking about it in a different kind of way. I did utilize rent help, and it caught me up, but while I was in the throes of that, not only was I behind on the rent, but then renewed my lease late. And as a result of that, my sanction was that my rent went from $270 to $900. And so I had to scratch my head and wonder if I was having difficulty with $270 a month. My goodness gracious, wouldn't someone think that, perhaps they should, grant me a reprieve, but seemingly not. One of the things that I think about, especially in terms of the seniors, if folks live long enough, they're going to be there. And so I always ask people to think about, your future. As seniors, we've paid it forward. And so my thought is that it's a small gesture in terms of continuing to invest in us because you have paid it forward. Part of the work that I've done in the community has included, having produced and directed the Miss Black Minnesota pageant, founding member for Juneteenth, National Night Out, Minnesota Freedom Schools, et cetera. And so as it relates to what I have given, I would think even more so that would grant me worthiness. And finally, I ask you all to think about, even when you're not in my shoes, just think about what it might feel like. Think about what does that mean for the elders in your family. And think of us all the same, and think about how we would want to be treated. And I think that what's going on now is a dismal example of doing the right thing. And so I am hoping that your heartstrings will provide what you need to do the right thing, and that you must fund this additional money as it relates to rent and housing and all of what comes with that. Thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, for those comments. And so this afternoon, we were supposed to be joined by Representative Tice, who unfortunately cannot be here today due to a family emergency. Representative Tice stands with the Erase campaign in urging the governor to support the emergency rental assistance and the House in taking swift action to take up the bill and send it to the Senate for a vote. So she did send us some comments. So I am going to read those comments on behalf of Representative Tice and really thank her for being a supporter for our campaign as well. So emergency rental assistance is needed now. People are still experiencing instability in their employment and ongoing issues like daycare closures and shortages are keeping people from going back to work. These families require immediate relief. We must immediately pass House File 3667 and then turn our focus to passing long-term housing solutions that will increase the amount and affordability of housing and proactive measures to help people get back on their feet again. I am also deeply concerned that inaction will result in harmful consequences. Without additional resources, small housing providers will sell their properties. In this market, investors will swoop in and we will have lost affordable rental homes and ownership opportunities. End of statement. So we thank you so much, Representative Tice, for your continued support and for sending those comments to us. And so finally, we are going to move on to our next speaker, who is Representative Hausman. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you who are telling these compelling stories. We have so much to learn, and we're grateful for the people who have come to give their points of view today. You all know that the first people who lost their jobs in the pandemic were workers in bars, restaurants, retail, the very workers who are probably one paycheck away from not being able to pay their bills. And so we quickly knew we had to do something to protect all of those renters from housing instability. Nothing else in life goes well if you don't have a safe place to sleep at night. So we quickly put in place the eviction moratorium and then followed that with some emergency funding to keep paying the rent. We wanted to protect and keep stable both the renters and the landlords so that they could continue to provide safe housing for their tenants. So the eviction moratorium happened. We knew that we wanted to prevent an eviction crisis at the end, and so we looked for sort of an off-ramp protection that to put in place until June. So we formed the emergency assistance under the name Rent Help MN, and unfortunately, that federal money soon was going to run out, and they very suddenly, unfortunately, had to discontinue taking the applications. We know that the need is still great, and we want to get to the end of the off-ramp protection in June. And so we're looking for $330 million of federal relief funds for rental assistance to get us through June. That's our immediate goal. That's House File 3667. But we do want that to go to the floor for final passage as quickly as possible. The good news is in my committee, the committee I chair, the House Finance Committee, we had a bipartisan vote. I appreciate Representative Tice's words just that you just read. And so we can take that message to our leadership that there was a bipartisan vote in the House committee. And now if we could have the Senate to move equally quickly to get that emergency rental assistance. Now, all we're talking about is an emergency. What we still have to commit to long-term in this legislative session is how we take advantage of the good. I just came from the briefing for members about the February forecast, and the news continues to be good. The forecasted surplus has actually gone up a little bit. And so that should tell us we have enough state funding to provide for a long-term solution for rental assistance and for home ownership assistance, down payment assistance. So I'm grateful that all of you are part of this effort. I look forward to partnering with you to successfully provide both emergency assistance and then some long-term relief for Minnesota citizens. Thank you so much for including me in today's event.
Thank you so much, Representative Houseman, and thank you so much for all the work you're putting in the committee and for your continued support and being a housing champion. And so we've come to the end of our speakers, and just to remind everyone who is listening in that our state has the funds and there's an urgent need for us to invest in emergency rental assistance now. And we would like everybody to join us in urging the House, the Senate, and the governor to work to move very quickly and urgently. We would also like to urge the governor to include emergency rental assistance in his supplemental budget. And we urge everybody who's listening to call Governor Tim Walz today at 651-201-3400. I believe there's also information being shared. There's a mail form that you can complete and join us in addressing this very urgent issue. And so are there any questions? If there are any questions, I think we can take a few questions before we wrap up. If we don't have any questions, I would like to thank everybody for participating and coming to share their stories, for all the support from our state legislators who are supporting us in addressing this important issue. And also would like to thank everybody who joined us to listen in and to contribute to this conversation. Thank you all so much and have a good afternoon.
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, is there a question on the chat? I did not see it. Are you able to?
Sorry, that was me. Hi, Nalima. I just wanted to know for the Brooklyn Park area, if you could localize it for us. We're a station that covers the Brooklyn Park community. I know it's a really rich, diverse community. Can you describe the need locally for rental assistance, Nalima?
Oh, yes, thank you for that question, Corey. So yes, ACER has been one of the field partners contracted by Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, and we continue to see a lot of great need, in Brooklyn Park. I don't have the exact numbers of what that looks like, but we know easily in the rental community in Brooklyn Park, we know the statistics tell us that easily over 60% of the tenants in Brooklyn Park, are housing cost burdened. That is, they're spending way over, 30% of their income. The average renter is spending at least about over 60% of their income on rent alone. And as the field partners here, serving the community in Brooklyn Park, we have helped thousands of tenants throughout this process. And we know we are one of the field partners who have been receiving a lot of calls around folks who are already experiencing non-renewals of their leases, already experiencing both judicial and especially the extrajudicial evictions that are happening in our community already. Are there any other questions?
I see Trizalee Carlisle. Looks like has a question, but on mute.
So if my landlord, I've been with him for 10 years and he just gave me a non-renewal of my lease, and he's saying he wants to sell the property. He wants me out by today. I've gotten a rent help application pending, but he's saying he definitely wants me out by today. And is there anything that I can say to him, I'm just freaking out right now.
Oh, wow. Shana, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am really sorry that you're going through that. That sounds incredibly stressful. One thing that I can say is that when you apply for Rent Help MN, you have protection for eviction during the months in which you've requested funding for. So while that application is processing, you can't be evicted for non-payment of rent. Now, what it sounds like is more like a non-renewal, right? So they said, we're not going to rent to anybody because we're going to sell it. And that gets a little bit more complicated because it has to do with what months that they've agreed to accept Rent Help MN funding for versus what months they're having you move out. So say they said, you know, hey, you know, you can have, I would like to, you know, get money from the state of Minnesota through Rent Help MN through you to stay here through March. And then they're trying to get you out at the end of February. Well, they can't do anything like that. It's less clear in other situations. So I'm going to put into the chat, but I'll say it out loud too. My telephone number here is
Hold on,
61.
let me get a
Yeah.
pen.
Perfect. And I'll put it in here too. Sometimes it's easier to copy and paste it. So my telephone number is 612
Uh-huh.
807
Mhm.
1139. And
Mhm.
I'm at extension number 4. So feel free to give me a call. I have some time this afternoon and this evening because it sounds like this is very, very urgent and we can talk more about it, okay?
Okay, yeah, because I tried calling him this morning and he's like, you definitely have to be out by the end of the day. And I was like, you haven't, you know, you were slow about getting documents and everything. And he's just being a total jerk about everything. He's saying that Section 8 didn't give him payment and they gave him payment. And I said, Section 8 wants you to call him or call them and clear up the money and this and that. And he tried to say that my water bill was base rent. And I mean, he's trying everything, trying to up what I owe him. And so he's just, I mean, he's kind of a slum landlord. I got mice and everything else. And then he started a lot of it after I had made complaints to the city. So
Yeah, thank you, Shana. Yeah, so please feel free to reach out to Shana.
I will.
After today, yeah. Are there any other questions before we have about 60 seconds left?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we don't have any other questions left, I think we did put our contact information in the press release. We want to thank everybody for joining us today to this press conference and for tuning in. And yeah, I wish you all a good afternoon. Thank you.